Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talent Magnet Institute, Networking That Works, our webinar for today. And we're really excited to be here. We're excited that you are joining us. A couple of quick housekeeping things. As you joined us, you saw that we posed a great question. What animal do you think of when you think of yourself as a networker? And you probably saw there was a QR code with that. And all of the interaction in today's session is actually going to be done through your phone with QR code. If you do have a question for us as hosts, feel free to pop it in the Zoom chat. Otherwise, everything is going to be through your phone today. So have it ready. We've got some fun interaction planned for you. I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Megan Leasher. I am a member of the TMI faculty. Super excited to be here talking about networking, something that is near and dear to my heart.
And hello, I'm Leanne Rechtin, and I am also with Talent Magnet Institute, and I'm very excited to be here as well. You can see we brought back up the slide with the first question that we had, and Megan and I just wanted to respond to this question really quickly, some of the things that you all have shared. When thinking about an animal that represents your current approach to networking, and I will talk about, well, there are a lot of things that stood out to me here, but I wanted to just mention just the fact that we have quite a few different approaches. We've got octopus, which I kind of interpret as somebody who wants to do a lot of things at one time, right? Octopi, I guess, if we're talking about multiple. They have different tentacles, so that maybe they're multitasking and talking to a lot of different people. I also thought the raccoon one was really interesting, running at a fast pace with uncertainty, sometimes getting smashed in the process. So so it's a very, maybe a non-deliberate approach. And what we're going to talk about today are some intentionality behind networking and a little bit more deliberate in that approach. Megan, how about you? What stood out to you?
I don't know. There's definitely some good ones up here. I think the first one that catches my attention is the sheep hurting others to participate. That feels very extroverted to me. And then kind of on the contrary, I see groundhog pop up then hide. Like maybe you get a burst of extroversion and then you're like, okay, too much, got to recharge. And you kind of like hide in the corner with your snacks maybe. So I kind of feel both of those. So thank you all for sharing our first interactive moment. And we're going to jump into our objectives for our Networking That Works session today. So first of all, we are going to be moving beyond just small talk and really thinking about authentic connections. Networking is all about building people around you, building your army for you to be able to accomplish more. And so we have to get past that small talk. And a lot of that involves shifting our mindset, getting in the right zone to approach networking in the best way possible. We're also going to talk about some follow-up techniques, actually getting responses, building those conversations, and lastly, how to activate and grow your network for those greater long-lasting opportunities. So very excited about that. As we go through our session today, we're also going to have a thought partner that comes with us, and that is our networking wingmate, and that's AI. Whenever you see this icon on one of the slides, Leanne or I is actually going to reference AI as a thought partner to help you with your networking. So not sure if you've ever used AI to help in networking before, but you could set goals with it. You could draft and practice messages either in print or, through actually talking to an AI chatbot, conversation starters, ideas of who to reach out to, places to go, people to meet. And then, maybe talking about where are you, what you've done, and how you might be able to level up your approach. So keep an eye on this icon. We are going to reference some key moments throughout about how you can use AI to really build that foundation all the way through strengthening up your networking to make it top of game. So we want to talk about really why we're even here. Why does networking even matter? Why are we going to go through all of this? And there's some really true personal and human aspects about networking. And first of all, being known opens doors. When you know people, they're willing to do things for you. They're willing to introduce you to people. They're willing to help you out with something. But being trusted is also very important. You can't be trusted unless you're known. And generally, people want to help. They want you to succeed. They want others to succeed. So if people know you and people trust you. And you're saying, hey, I'd love some help. I'd love to meet some new people. Maybe I want a new job. Maybe I want to learn about a different job. It's a great opportunity. And these are all great reasons why networking matters so much for all of us. So, with that in mind, we want to ask you, what is one word that comes to mind when you hear networking? Pull up that QR code again, drop them in. Curious to see what we're going to get in here. We've got folks typing. Always get a lot of variety when we open up a big question like this. All right, here they come. Coming in fast. Look at all of these. So many thoughts, so many feelings. See some connections in there. I see some relationship aspects. Ooh, I see cringe. I see drinks, important things. Stressful meetings, awkwards. So many good things. And you know what? That's what I love about networking, because all of these things are very real. There are some parts of networking for me that I'm like, oh, totally easy, not an issue. Maybe whoever shared the sheep earlier, hurting people to participate. Maybe that's their jam. Maybe that's easy for them. That sounds like torture for me personally. But we all have areas in networking that we're good at. We all have areas of networking that maybe we're not as good at. And you see all these different words up here that are both ends of those spectrum. I definitely think cringe is my favorite, but we also see opportunity, we see connection, we see fun. There's all kinds of different things in here, the good and the challenging and everything in between. And that's why our networking mindset is so critical when we approach networking. We're all going to have strengths. We're all going to have opportunities, but there's something so interesting about networking. And as we start off, when you think about it, we are all told from a very young age, don't talk to strangers. Don't do it. It's scary. It's bad. Unfamiliar is bad. And then all of a sudden, here we are as professionals, and we're suddenly told, hey, talk to strangers, meet people, get out there. And it's like, oh, we're suddenly supposed to do everything different than what we've been taught since we were young. So networking is always best to approach with a growth mindset. It's all about framing things as opportunities, chances to get better, chances to learn, chances to discover. It's not about the counts, the follows, the number of people you meet. It's really about those true connections, connecting with curiosity, courage, sense of purpose. It's all of those true human elements. And so when you make that mindset shift, especially with those things and those steps in networking that you're not as comfortable with, that's when we have an opportunity to be curious, be open, and be brave, because we're jumping into the unknown and maybe somewhere uncomfortable. We're doing it on purpose because there's definitely a greater win to be had. And what that win is what those benefits of networking are. And so what we know about networking, a report a couple years ago from LinkedIn stated that 85% of jobs are filled through networking, whether it's a personal connection or a professional connection. We know people, and that's what's really helping. So strong networks provide that growth, that mentorship, and the opportunities. And it's about that long-term game. It's long-term relationships. It is absolutely not about being transactional. It's really that true focus of building those connections because it works, because it matters, because we learn, we explore, we discover, and we might learn new skills or opportunities along the way that maybe wouldn't have presented themselves if that network wasn't in place. So let's talk about some examples of networking. And I think like the picture I get in my head of networking is kind of that traditional, like I go to an official event and there's maybe a happy hour and, hors d'oeuvres, and you're standing around kind of awkwardly, like talking to people. That's kind of what gets into my head. And I don't know what you're thinking of when the word networking comes to mind, but these are some really amazing examples of things that maybe you didn't think were networking, but really they truly are. So when you offer your help or expertise to someone, maybe there's someone new at your company and you help them out, learn how to do something. You're really networking. When you're making a warm introduction between two people who might benefit from knowing each other, you are helping them network, and you're also connecting your network in a different way. When you join a professional group or a Slack channel and you're part of that dialogue, that's networking too. So, whatever that frame of reference you might have in your mind when you first hear that word networking. Let's go big. Let's keep expanding that, because any opportunity where we can make a connection is just so critical for networking that works. And Leanne, I don't know about you, but like when I see this list, there are so many good things on here. The one that jumps out to me the most is DMing someone on LinkedIn. That feels very strange and scary and this virtual abyss, but that is totally networking, because reaching out to someone and say, "Hey, you have a cool job. Could I learn about it?" Like, I just think that's so exciting. What comes to mind, as something interesting on this slide for you?
Yeah. So one thing that really stood out to me, I know Megan, when we were talking about these examples, was the catching up or chatting with somebody at a
Mhm.
kid's soccer game, because I have been to a lot of soccer games in my lifetime, especially my own kids. And actually, I went to a soccer game last night. We live near Cincinnati. And so I was at the FC Cincinnati game, and I had taken a picture of my family at the game and I posted it on social media. And one of my friends said, "Hey, the person sitting behind you is actually on my son's soccer team. Would you turn around and say hi to them?" And I was like, "Okay." So I turned around and said hi. Well, turns out the uncle is one of my neighbors. He grew up across the street from me. And so then we reconnected. So that was a perfect example of networking in a non traditional way, right? We were able to reconnect. And so when we talk about networking, a lot of times people think it's that initial conversation, and that's true, but it's also extending beyond that. So it's the continued conversations, which we're going to talk about in a little while. Also on the slide, just to point out that we do have the AI, our Wingbot AI. And so if you were wanting to think about any other examples of networking and weren't sure, you could go ahead and ask AI and see about some additional examples.
Yeah, and you could share, what are some non-traditional examples of networking, or here's what my job is, or here's what I might want my job to be. Where are places I could be? Where are people I could meet? What are events I could attend? So definitely a great opportunity to use AI. And Leanne, I think about your example at the FC Cincinnati game, and I just think, wow, your notifications enabled you to broaden your network last night.
Yeah.
Totally unplanned. So love that so much. So let's ask all of you, when you're in a situation where you are needing to make some small talk, that can be an awkward moment, an awkward place to start, because you don't know the person, you don't know where to start, you don't know what to talk about. We all kind of have our go-tos, if you will. So what's your go-to small talk question or topic area? I see some folks typing already. Leanne, what's yours?
I really like asking people something they're looking forward to. So,
Okay.
what's a vacation you have coming up, or what's something that you have going on this week
Mhm.
that you're really excited about? Just something hopeful for the future.
Mm.
And I enjoy doing that. Or if I'm going to ask how they're doing, I usually do it on a scale, like on a scale of 1 to 5. How are you feeling today?
Wow.
So it's not just that whole, typically we ask, "How are you doing?" And we don't actually really mean for the person to interpret
Mhm.
that question. So that's a way for you to know, "Oh, wow, you really do care. You want to hear what I'm saying." How
Yeah.
about you?
I love yours because they're very caring, they're thoughtful, you wanna learn about the person, and I feel like kinda chintzy compared to that, because I just go to snacks and food, because, like, for me, I'm like, "Do I like the food here? Is there an absence of food and I wanna complain about it, and maybe I hope you're gonna complain with me? Is there something that I think is really tasty and I'm like, 'Ooh, go try that. Did you try that yet?'" So that's kind of my go-to, which is silly, but for me, it's a place of comfort, and it looks like we've got a whole bunch of things that people have shared in here. What do you see in here, Leanne?
Yeah, so I noticed right away the weather, and that's safe, right? That's like, if that's your go-to,
Mhm.
that's your tried and true, that's your safe one. Although it depends on what the weather is. I don't always want to talk about snow. If it's cold, I don't want to talk about that. So, but that's good that somebody has theirs down. And there's some other really great ones. I mean, really, like, are you from the area based on where you are? There's a few of those. What area do you live in? I know in the Cincinnati area, if you say to somebody, "What school did you go to?" You're going to get high school. That's a really common one in
That's
this
so weird.
geographical area. It is so weird.
Yeah.
It's very different. I like the "How are you? How's your summer going? What's going well these days?" So that's really
Mhm.
open ended. That's a nice one to just open up about, again, kind of that hopeful piece.
Yeah.
Depending on the environment, this person says either what are you reading or what's the coolest thing about you? Wow.
Ooh.
That would be a lot of pressure. I don't know what I'd say. The
Did
coolest thing.
did you see there is what feels like home for you?
Ooh,
That's
that is a
that's a
good one.
big question. I like that. So whether your comfort zone is something a little simpler, like me for snacks, got some folks with weather, travel, events, or if you want to go big with like an open-ended question, there's some great ones up here. Keep an eye out. Write some down. And actually, you don't have to write them down because we're going to be sharing the slides afterward and it's going to have all of our input in here. So, great opportunity to get some new ideas for small talk questions to try something out different next time you are with some folks.
Yeah. And I think maybe I'm going to keep scrolling because I see people
Yeah.
continuing to type here. And so we'll just stay on this page for a little bit more because I want to give you all the opportunity to jot down some of these. But like Megan said, you might be trying to take copious amounts of notes and your hand might be
Mhm.
hurting at this point. So you don't need to do that. You can screenshot in AHA slides if that's easy for
Mhm.
you, but you could also just wait and we will be sending out after the session, you will get a PDF with all of these
Mhm.
responses in it, and you will also get a tool, a little handout reference sheet that we're going to utilize for a couple things coming up here. So just to let you know about that. And I do. Let's see. I like some of these other questions. I just want to highlight. What are what are you steeping in these days? Oh, a shout out to tea
Tea
drinkers. That's really clever.
drinkers.
What's your superpower? Oh, these are really coming in here
Wow.
now. What's been your most exciting project over the last year or coming in the
Nice.
next year? And I love how some of these are work related, right? That's a little bit more work
Mhm.
related potentially. Not
Mhm.
that you couldn't ask about these other things in a workplace setting,
Mhm.
but I think it would give you some additional opportunities. And I think it's real that I think when some people said it, that first word cloud, cringe or anxious or scary, I think sometimes it's just that idea of we don't really know what to say. So we kind of feel like we might get stuck and we're not sure how to open the conversation. So having one or two of these just at the
Mhm.
ready in your mind would be really helpful. I do also want to point out the fun. I love having fun.
Yeah.
So the fun one, what are you doing for fun these days? We forget to have fun sometimes, they said. So I love that as well. So yeah, just a lot of really good ideas. Did you have something else you wanted to share,
Yeah, you know
Megan?
what I was thinking about? You were saying about like, having one or two ready to go. Sometimes it does feel safer or better or more appropriate to have a work-based one, like what's been your most exciting project? I see that one up there. But sometimes it might feel better to go with a more personal route. So if you're thinking of like, okay, I'm going to have one or two, go-to questions, maybe you have a personal one, maybe you have a professional one. And then based on the situation, you can kind of, gauge the vibe and be like, okay, I'm going to go with my work one here, and maybe in a different situation, okay, I go with my personal one here. But you all have shared some great things, and it's been great to dig in, and hopefully you've learned a new one that you might be able to try on your own.
Yeah. And some of these are just really fun questions, kind of I want to know the answer to,
I
right?
know,
Like, what
right?
part of town do you most admire? That is specific. I
Do you have,
like it.
do you have a superpower?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think when I think about my superpower, it actually relates to this topic.
Oh,
So my strengths all kind of line up to be very high extroverted, very engaging with others. And I taught public speaking for 12 years. So my superpower is that stuff like this doesn't really make me nervous. Maybe that scares other people though. I have to be mindful of the way that I am in approaching others because of that. So
wow.
that's a great question. How about you? What's your superpower?
Yeah. So mine is that I can wake up like 2 minutes before my alarm goes off and I'm wide awake and I'm staring at it like I'm predicting it's going to go off. I don't know why. It's probably the morning person in me, but it's like I will just open my eyes, stare at it 2 minutes before the alarm. There I am, wide awake.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah, I kind of want that superpower. Well, we are going to continue on here, but again, you've got some great suggestions. When we think about the art of small talk, we want to just reference a few key tips. And that first thing, we really related to this on that last slide. Be curious, not perfect. So it's okay if you're a little nervous. It's all right to even admit that. You might even say to somebody, "Oh, I'm feeling a little awkward," and that's fine. Just be curious, not perfect. Don't think about necessarily what you're going to say and how you're going to respond, but being genuine in your listening and that intentionality in really picking up what the other person is saying
Mhm.
and then being able to tie that back into the conversation later. That's such a gift. Listening, we could do a whole session on listening, right? Because listening is such a gift and it's really a part of this conversation of or this topic of networking. Look for those shared contexts or interests. So when somebody says something and maybe it triggers something else for you to think about with your own life, then share that, right? Share about that shared interest. And think about some of those questions that you all said on the last slide were great because they were open ended. So it wasn't just a one word response, it was soliciting something a little bit deeper. So asking those open ended questions. And again, being interested is interesting. So you'll be more interesting when you're genuinely interested in what they say. Ask some follow up questions so they know that you were listening. And remember that it is a muscle that you need to build. So the first time that you're trying some of these questions, it might feel a little awkward, and that's okay. Push through that awkwardness. That's going to lead to more discovery about yourself and about the other person. So when we think about after we've made that first connection, so we've made that first connection, maybe it's still part of that. Maybe it's you're going to some event, maybe you're going to your child's soccer game and or whatever sport, right? And you are thinking about, oh, I'm going to meet these other parents.
Mhm.
Okay, I've got some great questions. I've got some topics that I might be providing, or I've got in my back pocket, right? But also, how many people have thought about creating that authentic elevator pitch? Now, many of you have probably heard of an elevator pitch. We realize this is not brand new information, but what we want to talk about here is having that authentic elevator pitch ready, that keyword authentic. So it's not some canned thing. You're not going to be with somebody and say, hold on, let me get out my notes, right? And read this. So you really want to have an idea of what you want to say. So what is an elevator pitch and where does it come from? Well, it comes from the idea that in 30 seconds to a minute, if you were in an elevator with somebody and they said, "Tell me about you," what would you say? Right?
Mhm.
Would you stammer? Would you be uncertain? What would you do? So that's the goal behind an elevator pitch is you have this thing ready. And it's going to sound different every time. So you're just going to think about these key concepts: who you are, which typically includes your name. That's helpful information, right? That's helpful to know. So, your name, what you do, and that does not have to be your job. That doesn't have to be your role. That can simply be like the essence of what you do or your purpose in life. So, it doesn't need to be role based. And then that leads into how you make a difference. So, based on what you do, how are you making a difference in the world? And I know that one might be hard for some people. Like, what? I make a difference? Yes, we all make a difference. So, what is the difference that you make? And then why do you love that? Now, if you're crafting this elevator pitch and you're not sure how to answer some of these things, again, that might be a different topic. Like, let's think about purpose and role and maybe something else that you might find more meaningful to you in life. And so I'm just saying that because if you're struggling with why you love it, that might be a little bit telling. But once you've said your 30 seconds to a minute, you want to send it back. You want to ask them, how about you? Right? If they didn't introduce themselves first. So we want to give you just a little bit of time. And Megan and I are going to share ours, but maybe just a little bit of time here for you to start to think about what you might say. And this is going to be in that handout that I referenced, the worksheet that you're going to get later on after the session. You are going to get this exact this icon, this graphic, but you're going to have a place below that to be able to write. So we will be sending you that afterward. So if you don't want to write it all out right now, that's fine. But this is also a great place. You probably saw the AI icon here. This is a great place as well
Mhm.
for you to ask AI. If you're utilizing AI regularly, it is fed based on what we tell it, right? So the more you utilize AI, the more it's going to know you. And so you might say, "Hey, could you please help me?" Give it the prompts to think about in 30 seconds to a minute, a little elevator pitch, a way that I could introduce myself to other people. And so, because we were doing this, Megan and I decided we wouldn't be hypocrites. We would lead by example. We're
Exactly.
going to share with you the ones that we created, and we also have them written down so that you can see them as well. So, without any further delay, here are our elevator pitches. So I'm going to share mine, then Megan will share hers. So again, it's important to say my name. My name is Leanne Rechtin, and I'm a lifelong learner, educator, and facilitator. I make a difference by helping teams connect their daily work to a bigger vision and love it because it empowers people to lead with clarity and authenticity. So, Megan, would you like to share yours?
That was really good. That's tough
Hey,
to
thanks.
follow.
Oh,
Okay. My name is Megan Leasher, and I am an executive coach and part of the TMI faculty. I help people and organizations thrive in the face of disruption because I truly love helping people become better with change. And it's so interesting when we think about these because I know I don't have that memorized. I don't know about you,
no.
but I had a hard time writing mine. And so, you can put in their titles or not put in titles, or you can say things like learner, educator, like you did, Leanne, or you can, say, I work for this company, I do this. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I love that we both went to the place of here is why I love it, because people love to hear your passion and what gets you excited and really indicates what your purpose is. And so I think that's a great place to inspire other people to ask questions. So it's not always an easy task to write these and do them. Whether you're early in your career, later in your career, and everything in between, it can always be challenging.
Yeah. And I think it's good, just like we talked about on the small talk topics, it's really helpful to have an idea of what you want to say in different settings. So
Mm,
maybe based on the audience, this wouldn't always sound the same. So we would love to hear. Here's a poll for you. You're going to respond to letting us know on the scale of, here's a scale, on the scale of like I want to throw up. Okay,
that's the bottom,
that's the
right? The
bottom.
bottom.
That's the
Okay.
bottom. Yes. Two, how I want to feel when delivering. I'm sorry, on the other side, I'm reading the too far right. Like I want to mic drop. Okay. So on a scale of wanna probably gonna throw up, don't want to, but I might.
Right.
To I really want to mic drop or I'm gonna mic drop because I have got this down.
Ooh,
So
look at
you've got
that.
those two things and you all are doing a great job. You're already
Look at that
responding.
slide.
I mean, it is moving. I love this live poll. If you ever watch those like Dancing with the Stars shows or whatever, where you call in to vote and they don't show you, right? I wish they would. This is so
I
much
know,
better.
right?
Yeah, you can see it changing live. So we
I
can see the
know.
difference in our scale. We can see our average there at the bottom for each color. So the pink is, at least it looks pink on my end, but the first one, how I currently feel about delivering an elevator pitch is there. And then how I want to feel when delivering an elevator pitch is the green all the way there to the right,
Oh,
mostly. So really interesting. What I love about this too, because I'm kind of a data nerd, I
mhm,
love that the average, like you don't just get the number, you see the split. So, right. So
mhm.
we can see that there's a pretty big group of folks here on the left-hand side that are kind of feeling sick about it right now.
Yeah.
Like you shared before, it wasn't easy. It's not easy. So, how are we going to reduce that feeling of I'll call it, terribleness is by practicing, by having
Yeah.
something ready.
And the right mindset.
And the right mindset.
Mhm.
Yes, going back to that mindset of it's an opportunity. I get a chance to share about something about me that I'm excited about. And so hopefully you think about it a little bit more. We're going to ask you at the end of the session what's something that you're going to be willing to commit to. And maybe yours is going to be I'm going to craft an elevator pitch. I'm going to have this ready. I know what I want to say. So it's very exciting that nobody feels like they want to throw up.
Mhm. It's
Right.
true.
I mean, that's exciting news. That's a good mindset, right? Nobody
Put the
said,
barf bags away,
yes,
right?
exactly. Nobody wants that, right? So that's good. And I think it's just really telling about, maybe why some of you came to this session to be able to learn more and to grow and to think more about that. So thank you for participating in that poll. All right. So you made a connection. So we've talked about, let's give a little recap. We talked about what you're going to say
Mhm.
at that initial setting. We talked about some examples of what that might be like or where that might occur, not just a happy hour. I remember that from the word cloud, but other examples. And then we talked about, of course, your elevator pitch where you've got kind of what you want to say. And so, all right, good. You've made that connection. That was a great interaction, right? It's hard for me as somebody who taught communication to not think about that as like a first date, but right, like a metaphor of like, okay, you did it and it went well, right? Where are we going to go from here? So let's talk a little bit about fostering and cultivating the network. So we can't just say, well, that was a good chat. I met this person, really exciting. We have to follow up. So just like our car, give you another metaphor. Just like our car requires maintenance, relationships do as well. And so we must follow up if we want to foster that connection and we want to grow it. Now we have our AI wing bot here to remind us that you could look up other ways to cultivate your network beyond just what you're seeing here on this slide. But to be able to grow that network, and I'm going to give you, this is also going to be in your toolkit takeaway. There's going to be a worksheet, and I'll show you a screenshot of that on the next slide. But we really want you to think about who you already know, right? Who do you already know? And who do those people that you already know? So anytime that we connect with another person, we are also getting access to their entire network. So think about that. Identify some gaps or growth opportunities. So you're going to see that on the screenshot of this handout is you're going to be able to assess like, all right, where's an area that I might need to grow my network? I have a lot of people in this field. So I mentioned as somebody who's been in education, I have a lot of network folks in education. But what if I want to grow beyond that? So I want to think about where are those gaps potentially and some growth opportunities. And then you want to be curious and ask purposeful questions. People really like to help other people. And so when you ask for help, it's kind of hard. It's a moment of vulnerability for us to say I need help. I'd really love to have some assistance with you connecting me to this other person, but it's a really incredible opportunity when you do that. People will just go above and beyond. I have seen that firsthand so many times in my life. People will go above and beyond to help when they know that you need it or you're interested. So then you want to be curious and ask those purposeful questions. We talked about that earlier. And think about diversifying your network. So I referenced that just before as well. We want to make networking an intentional habit. So we want it to be intentional. We talked about that from our very first slide with our animal, right? And remember the raccoon who's running around. I think I saw squirrel. I kind of interpret squirrel as like squirrel, like shiny thing. There's all this stuff. So how do we move from that to being really intentional? And then use your results to plan your next connection. So you're intentionally, again, back to that, planning the next connection. So I'm going to reach out to this person again, maybe in a week, or maybe in your current lunch that you're having with somebody, you ask them, hey, let's take a look at next month and see when we can get back together. Or when would you like me to follow up? Something like that. Megan, anything standing out to you on this one?
We actually have a question that just came in that definitely connects to that. I think it's a great opportunity for both of us to share. So, Lynn, thank you for your question in the Zoom chat. Lynn would love to see some examples as to what to say when reaching out to someone on LinkedIn or an email. Maybe you haven't seen them in a long time. Maybe you don't even know them, but you have some mutual connection. So it's sort of that cold reach out, right? How do you compel them to continue the conversation without sounding needy or self-serving? That's a tough one because you're in sort of that virtual abyss again. And I'll share my thoughts
Go
and
for it.
then yeah. So I think for me, I would find something very specific on their LinkedIn page that catches my attention. And don't let it be like the first line. Like dig in deep in their profile. Like maybe they did some certification program. Maybe they went to school somewhere that someone. Like go deep in their page and notice something interesting that really just catches your attention and ask them about that. And, offer a compliment saying, I looked at your page, maybe your current role is really interesting or your path has been really interesting or whatever. I would start with the compliment and then say, and I also noticed this one thing that just really wowed me. And I would love to learn more about that because it's something I have an interest in. So I go for a compliment and then, specific question about something maybe deeper in the LinkedIn page so people realize, hey, I actually noticed.
Yeah.
I read, I paid attention, and something caught my attention and I'd love to know more. So that's what I would do. What would you
Yeah.
do?
I really like your example, by the way. So I love the question and want to just say thanks, Lynn, for asking that. And if anybody else has questions, please do that in the Zoom. Let us know. You can tell we're looking. And here's the first thing that came to my mind. people don't often wonder too much. They're not as worried about what we say. They're kind of worried about why we're saying it.
Mm.
And I think on LinkedIn, I don't know about you, but I've received some sales based questions.
Mm.
When I don't know somebody, it seems like it's a sales pitch. And that kind of feels icky. It's like that cold call that you get from somebody. And so I think if her question is all about making that connection, right? That's what this whole conversation is. And so to be able to do that, I think just being clear about the why up front. And that's kind of what you're talking about there, Megan, when you said
Mhm.
find something that relates. But I would be really clear about that in my initial response or in my initial question and reach out. I would say, hey, I saw that you work for this organization, and I've just been really curious to learn more about that company. Or I see that you're doing this in your role, and I'd love to know how you got into that. Again, when you tell people why you want something and that you need help, they're
Mhm.
almost always going to jump on that. So I think asking and being clear about that why would
Mhm.
be really helpful as well.
I'd ask AI too. I
No.
love throwing people's LinkedIn profiles into AI and being like, "Hey, I'm going to talk to this person. Any idea for some great questions I could ask?" So another great plug for our wingmate there.
That's great. Um, and did it looks like maybe Len responded to us there.
Just thanking us. So
Okay,
yeah,
very
I think
nice,
we
very
covered a lot.
nice.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, really love that. And again, just ask any other questions. We're happy to address them. So, I mentioned this already, but we wanted to point out that you are going to get a PDF that looks exactly like this. And one thing that we would really like to encourage you to do as some additional work on this, because here's what we know: we can talk about networking and have a session like this for an hour, but what we won't do is do a whole lot if we don't do anything beyond it, right?
Mhm.
Like if we don't network beyond it, if we don't dig a little bit deeper, it just kind of ends there with like, well, that was good. That was a great session. So we want to advance that. We want to take that a little bit further. So here's a way, and I'm not going to walk you through this entire thing right now, except to just tell you the high level what you'd be doing. So down in the bottom on the left where it says contact's name, you're going to put your network, people that you feel are in your network. So when we say, or you saw networking that works, and you thought about who is my current network, well, that's what we love for you to put. And you might need to add more boxes, more rows to this worksheet if you would like to. But you're going to put your contact's name, and then you're going to rate the strength of that contact on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's not to add the numbers up to say, wow, this contact isn't very strong, but it's more just so that you can see those numbers to see maybe where you need to diversify a little bit. So, what are you rating them on? You're rating them on strength. And strength is the intensity of the social tie. So, is this person a family member that you see every day or pretty regularly? That's going to be probably a 10. At least that would be a 10 for me. And then maybe it's a team member that you don't see that often, or maybe it's an acquaintance that you knew for a little bit of time. That's probably going to be a 1 or a 2. So this is subjective. You don't have to have this like, well, I don't know what to put for them. Should I make them a 3 or a 4? Just trust your intuition. So that's strength. And then commitment is the next one. And that commitment is willingness to commit resources on your behalf. So, how much are you willing to share your network or your resources with this person? Now, it's not, you do see in the parentheses, it doesn't say anything about money. So, that's good. That's not necessarily what it means by resources, but maybe it is like they need a little donation to something, right? That could be something else you add there. But is this person a mentor? Would you be willing to share your mentor, sorry, with them? Or would you be willing to advocate for them? Are you more of an advisor? So what's your level of resource sharing with that person? And then there's connectedness, and that's the quality of their network and influence. So who could they connect you with? And again, all of this is just you kind of thinking about it. And then the link to career goals. So how can they support your goals? Are they a subject matter expert? Can they help you make other connections? And do you have any notes or questions for them as you think about doing this? Is there something that comes to mind that you say, oh, I'd really like to ask them if they could connect me to this network? And then there's a column for next steps. So what are you going to do? Are you going to reach out to them? Is this a relationship that maybe you're just going to kind of let fade away? Because again, without maintenance, that's what will happen. So how can we, maybe that's why it's cultivating. How do we want to cultivate the relationship with that person? Where are some gaps? You're assessing that. And I know this can feel for a lot of people, they'll say, oh, this feels weird. This doesn't feel authentic. This feels like I'm being fake. And I understand that. That relates a lot to, like, if you've ever done anything on personal branding, right? It's like people will say, that doesn't feel good to me. But the reality is we all do this. Okay. We all do this. We all assess relationships. We all kind of do a cost benefit analysis in our own minds. There's a lot of communication theories that support it, where we will discern how much we're putting into a relationship and how much we're getting out of it. And we really want that to kind of be even, because we don't want we don't want one person to be putting in way more than they're getting out, or vice versa. So that's another way that you can assess this, to see, like, is this person just, constantly taking from me, but not really giving a lot? Or is this person, am I giving a lot to this person? Um, and or are they giving a lot to me and it's unbalanced, and I've kind of taken
Mm.
advantage of that without really realizing it. So it's a tool that's just for you. You don't have to share it. This isn't like Maggie and I are going to say, okay, this is homework, please, send this to us afterward. But we would love to assist you with any questions that you have moving forward. So please let us know about any of those. And I'm just going to pause here on this and see, Megan, any thoughts you have here, or do we have any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, well, both actually.
Yep.
So, in terms of cultivating your network, you may, if you're in HR, you may have used like a candidate resource management kind of tool, or if you're in sales, maybe a customer management. It's a really similar aspect. It's keeping those people that are important to you top of mind and always thinking about what is next, what is the next action I want to take. And some of these different subjective rating scales that Leighann talked about, really think about what are the priorities, and those are certainly going to shift over time as your priorities shift. So some definite things to think about, and a great home to keep track of people too. In the notes and in the questions, you could put someone's email address, you could put their LinkedIn page, you could put a phone number, whatever a need be. You can make this your own and have it be a great resource. Like, who is that person I met that one time who did this job that now 3 years later I'm thinking about doing? This is a great home for things like that. So, just a few extra thoughts on that. And we actually have a couple more questions.
Great.
They're coming in as anonymous through the Q&A. So the first one is, I have a job interview next week. Do I try to connect with them in advance? And connect is in quotes. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that's like a LinkedIn connect kind
Mhm.
of scenario. For me, I would say yes, definitely. I love doing an advance connect on LinkedIn, maybe like a day or two beforehand, and just saying like, "Hey, I'm looking forward to our conversation this week. Looking forward to learning more about the job, excited about it, learning about the company, things like that." So I would say yes to that one. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think it depends on if that person is expecting, like, I don't know, maybe to hear from you or not. So
Mm,
I think it would depend on the relationship, and if you wanted them to see what you have out there. So I would answer it with it depends. If it's a, let me say it this way. If I haven't told my current employer that I'm interviewing, and this is for somebody outside of that, I don't know that I would want to invite that connection in,
oh,
just in case I might be sharing too much,
okay.
right? Unless my current employer knew that I was looking or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and then, also keep in mind that if you are connecting, or, I guess when I think of connect and in quotes, maybe that's like inviting them to see everything on your LinkedIn,
Mm,
then you're opening them up to yourself up, rather, to everything that you shared. So just be really mindful about that.
yeah.
That kind of gets into personal brand a little bit, I
Mhm,
think. What's that brand looking like, and what are you wanting them to see?
mhm.
So I'm not saying that like you're trying to hide. It seems like I'm saying you're trying to
No,
hide something. That's not what I mean. It just means I would just be really careful
be
about it.
thoughtful. Yeah, be
Yeah.
thoughtful. And it's a great example when you think of networking that works. What works for one person might be a little different than someone else.
Yeah.
So think about your situation. Think about what thoughtfulness or discernment you might need to put into it, and then make the best call with all the factors you have for your situation.
Yeah.
All right. So our second question is the elevator pitch the same as what you would say during an interview when they ask you to tell me about yourself?
Can I go first on this one?
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
thank you.
dreaded first interview question. We all know,
Yes.
right?
Okay. So, full disclosure, I've been interviewing a little bit recently. I had a job change that was unexpected. And so I have had to deal with that really recently. And I prepped for it because when you read a lot about that first question, tell me a little bit about yourself. What almost everybody says is that is a question that's kind of two part. So, one, it's an easy, like, let's just settle the nerves. Let's just get this person to kind of settle down a little bit, get
Mhm.
comfortable, but also it's to see how succinct you are. So I would answer yes. I think that would be the best way to answer that question. It is not, they do not want your life story. They do not want you
Mhm.
going on for very long. You've got to manage the time that that interview is allotted for. And if you go on for too long in that question, then you might not have, you might be getting into things you want to say later. So the other thing you might do, here's a little extra tip. Now we're kind of getting into interviewing, which I think is
Right.
really fun. Another tip is that you might have a career portfolio that you bring with you if it's an in-person interview, or even if it's virtual, you might want to share. And that portfolio might have examples of things you've done that relate to the job, or maybe you crosswalked your skill set with what the job portfolio is asking. And so that is a great time for you to say, here's a little bit about me, right? You might share about your education or a couple of things that stood out to you from the job description. And then that's where you could hand out that career portfolio. So
Mhm.
it's a good way to show how prepared you are as well.
It's a great question.
It's such a good
I
question.
know, like, if I ever have an interview and, like, the question is coming, like, and the second it comes, I'm just like, oh crap, here we go. Like, it's just such a loaded question, right?
Yes.
And they always start off with it. So I would say yes, it would start off with an elevator pitch. Would I literally just stop it at the end of the elevator pitch, like what you and I had on the slides? I would go a little beyond that.
Yeah.
So I would probably add something about, like, in my career journey, I've had the opportunity to do X, Y, and Z, and now I'm looking to do A, B, and C,
Mhm.
and this job felt like a great match. So I would bring it back to the job. So, like, yes, and I think would
Yeah.
be my answer there.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one. And if you've ever been in that situation where you're like, oh, tell me about yourself, and you're just like, oh my God, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Like it's such a common feeling, and practice is definitely helpful in these situations, but it doesn't always take away that anxiety or that stress that comes with it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go yes and for my
I
answer.
like that. I like
Uh,
yes and. Okay, I want to go to just a few things here as we kind of wrap up. We're starting to wrap
yeah.
up. And so it seems like we might have a few more opportunities for questions if you do have some. So please feel free to share those. But just a reminder of where we've been over the past close to an hour. We're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
So we talked about how your mindset matters, how the way that you approach networking will matter. It's the same reason why when you hear about the way that you dress matters, right? Because you dress the way that you feel, like that has to do with your confidence. And so the way that you approach your networking interactions and any interaction, if you do that with authenticity and do it with curiosity, and that will make it less scary. So that mindset that you go into it with, if you're like, oh, great, I have to go people today, right? That might not be so wonderful. So think about your mindset, and then your small talk will start your discovery. So just some one or two things that we talked about earlier that you can have at the ready for some
Mhm.
small talk, and practice introducing yourself. So you're going to work on that elevator pitch or some type of a general introduction as to what you want to say, knowing it's not going to be perfect. Please don't have it memorized, because people can see that. Unless you're a really good actor or actress, they will know that you have this memorized. So try not to memorize it. Just have your key points, and then put yourself in places to meet new people. So get yourself out there a little bit. Maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's just cultivating that network in any way that you identified based on that handout that we're going to send. Where might you want to grow, and what other areas of opportunity are there? Sorry. So continue to cultivate your network. And with that, we have a final question for you here on
Two
Aha
more.
Slides.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah,
Oh,
kinda. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That wasn't a spoiler alert or
No.
anything. Yeah, just another engagement opportunity at the very end. But we would love to know, based on everything we shared, and we're getting some results there, so that's wonderful. You can pick all four if you want. If you're an overachiever, I love that. Feel free to add which action or actions are you committing to moving forward. And Megan, as these are coming in, what's standing out to you here that you think you might do?
Yeah, so for me, I got to go back to the elevator pitch
Mhm.
because I felt like I was stumbling a lot as I wrote that, and as we go throughout our career, we might have some shifts of our own, and I feel like I'm stumbling a little bit because I feel like I might be starting a new wave or a new place. And so your elevator pitches change with you as your career changes. And so I think that's mine. Not to say I'm not going to do all of these things, but what would yours be?
I think that I'm gonna go with I'm first of all, I just love that there's such a wide variety of responses here. And so that's wonderful. I think it's going to be kind of a combination of increasing my connections and cultivating my network.
Okay.
Because one thing that I have learned here recently, and like I mentioned, my own job search, is that I have really met a lot of fascinating people.
Hmm.
And I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an informational interview where I can just, can I reach out to people and just learn more about them? And I've done that a lot with LinkedIn. So I think that I'm going to continue doing that and maybe even meet up with a few more people in person. There's
Yeah.
just something that you can't replicate online with meeting people face to face.
Yeah. And
So
what I see, we have 15 people who picked cultivating your network. And we actually have a couple more questions that came
okay,
in.
great.
And one of them relates to that. So how many people can you manage well in your network?
Okay. You want me to,
Oh,
can I answer
go
this one?
for
I
it.
actually
What
have
do you think?
research. I have research that supports
Research.
it. Yes. Because we talked about this a lot when I, again, taught interpersonal communication. So the average person can maintain, um, so here's the terminology, it's called an intimate relationship, meaning high self disclosure on both ends. So you are maintaining that at a really high level. And so the average person can maintain 5 to 8 at a time. All right. Now, this is not getting into anything like, again, please don't think I'm saying you're going to have 5 to 8 relationship partners or anything, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 5 to 8 significant, highly self-disclosive relationships. So,
Mhm.
just think about that right off the bat, like in your own mind. Who would you say that is for you, right? Is that probably your family? Is it some coworkers? There is also a lot to do there with the people that we're around the most in our lives. So, those that we see most often or we connect with even virtually feel like we have that close connection with. So, 5 to 8 close. Now, can you maintain a high level of acquaintances? Sure. Right. So, this isn't saying that these people are all going to be high. Like, you're not going to have, I don't think on that worksheet you would have more than I really don't think anybody would have more than 10 where they had high numbers
So
for
you're
every
just in
single
like the
person.
tights, like your tight inner
You got
circle.
it.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You're
With you.
tight inner circle. And then from there, you're going to extend beyond it. So when the question is, would you remind us that question
Absolutely.
again?
Yeah. It's Julie's question. How many people can you manage well in your network?
Yeah, yeah. So I think I don't know what manage well means to her
Right.
exactly, right? But I think if it's going to be a high level of interaction, I'm going to say 5 to 8.
Okay.
But again, you might have more than that.
Yeah. And I think of that question and I also think about how many people are you actively talking to at one point in time. So it may not necessarily be your inner circle. It may be, I'm looking to learn more about a new type of job I want to explore.
Yeah.
So I'm actively talking to 3 or 4 people to learn about their job. And then maybe that phase passes and you're not talking to them as much anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it can come and go as well. So Julie, thanks for that question. We have one more question in, and this one's kind of a doozy, so probably one
Mm,
to end on. So,
okay.
how do I develop stronger gravitas?
Ooh,
Right,
yeah. So
going big.
maybe we should do another session. I think that could be a whole
Could be.
60-minute, that could be a whole separate session or a day long. That could be a course. Anyway, oh man, I don't want to be, I don't want to have a cop out, but I think that's really an it depends for me as well, because that's going to depend on what's your gravitas right now, right? And with whom. Like that's going to change based on my audience. I'm going to walk into a room of college students, for example, and I'm going to be fine because that's a comfort zone for me. But maybe in a room full of total strangers, or depending on the topic, I don't know. What if I was speaking in an auditorium? I'd be really nervous. I don't know how my gravitas would be.
Right.
So I think it would depend on that. But the question is, how do I improve it?
Yes.
I think you do that with little baby steps. I think you do that each connection at a time. I think you push yourself beyond your comfort zone as much as you can, not to this like crazy degree, but just a little bit at a time. And then the more you do that, again, you're growing that muscle like we referenced earlier, and you're becoming more and more comfortable doing other things. So maybe it's you saw this, I love book clubs. Okay, I'm going to use that. Maybe it's a new book club that I saw and I said, you know what? I don't know any of these people, but I'm going to go to this because I'm going to push myself outside of my comfort zone a little bit.
And
So-
I love that answer. And I'm going to add to that, because every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you build a little more confidence. So my big answer here is to be confident in yourself, be confident in your skills, your strengths, and the value you add, both in a job and to other people. And it doesn't matter what other people think of those sorts of things. You have the confidence in yourself, and having that mindset of going into a room, especially maybe one where there's not as much comfort, or you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and remembering I have value, I am important, people like me. There's kind of those like affirmation sorts of things come to mind for me. So that's a really big question, but I would say challenging yourself and continuing to build those baby steps, and to believe in your confidence, especially as it grows with those baby steps. So
And
love
you know
that.
what? The person said gravitas. So you got to hand it to him for that.
Love it.
I mean, that's a big
Exactly.
word.
Big
So
word.
we're already, ahead of the game, I
Yeah.
think, on that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So that was our last question. Thank you for that one, closing us
Yeah.
strong.
And we've got one final slide.
Yes.
Another interaction point that we would love to share with you. And that's one. Thank you. Thank you for coming live. We are so grateful that we had an audience responding live with us here. It was wonderful. The questions that you shared
They're
were
great.
fantastic. And so thank you for that. We would love to have your feedback. So there is a different QR code now that you are invited to share your feedback. We're going to be sending this though in a follow-up email. So if right now you were like, oh, dang it, I have something at the end of this I've got to get to, then that's okay. Go to that. We'll send you a link. But if you have time right now and you're able to do this feedback survey, that would be wonderful also. Megan, any final thing you want to share?
We just thank you for joining us today on behalf of Talent Magnet Institute and our session on networking that works. And we hope you picked up something new, and we hope that you are inspired to try something different, and to keep at it, and to keep the right mindset.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.